What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back on the video. It's Monday, it's new time. It's time for the mock draft Monday. We did the 11 pick, 9 pick, 7, 5. We're now at 3, working our way back to pick 1. Half PPR this week, and it was requested we do a 3 wide receiver league because those are way more common right now. So again, 12 team, half PPR, pick 3, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex, same bench spot. I figure we start fiddling with these down here. So we're gonna have a mixture for like what the computers are simulating for Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings, composite ADP of a couple different platforms, plus the ESPN pre-draft rankings. All of that mixed together, that is what is going to be simulated for what we are drafting up against. So let's start this draft off. 3 wide receiver league. We, of course, are going to favor wide receivers, right? We're going to want wide receivers a little bit earlier on. We are in a bit of a tricky spot in terms of our draft spot here. So I think they did an update for how this is looking. Anyways, bit of a tricky spot. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me in a normal format, Nick, is it okay to go with one of like Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson at that like 2, 3, 4 pick? Basically being like many times in a redraft league, you look at running back here. Bijan will go. Gibbs, JT, Saquon, maybe even Kyron and Derrick Henry. I would say all probably should be gone when you get back to your next pick. People do mock drafts. They think, okay, I just like my team more if I grab one of Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson in this top 3, top 4, and then I'm still going to get great wide receivers after that. I can go with like a hero build. If there happens to be another running back, we're cool going with running back there. But they feel like they're locking themselves into a little bit of a box, saying, I'll take this wide receiver who's still going to be awesome because there's going to be awesome wide receivers other spots. Completely agree. Completely think it's fine. Again, in a normal format, which has 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, I do think if that's your take, go for it. If you feel strongly you can get great wide receiver value, which you can do, go for your favorite between Breece or Bijan or whichever one of them is left, and then just forego wide receiver in that first round, knowing you're going to get a good one in the next round. And who knows? Last week, remember we did the robust build? I drafted 3 running backs in a row. I thought that team turned out pretty darn good given the value we got at wide receiver later on. So I think it's okay going Bijan at this pick. My only hesitation is, again, we are now in a 3 wide receiver format. So my plan for a draft and 3 wide receiver is all year I want to be starting 4 wide receivers, 2 running backs. Now, I can start 3. So this does not mean I have to go wide receiver here because I can start Bijan, 2 more running backs in a given week, and then still start the 3 wide receivers. It's just that we know we are going to want obviously very strong wide receivers. We know the wide receiver makes up more of the starting roster, so they gain value. And just given how locked in some of these top wide receivers are, I do think in a 3 wide receiver format, the correct decision is still to go through top-ranked wide receiver. My top-ranked wide receiver is still CeeDee Lamb. I've given the take of if you want to flip-flop CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, go for it. I do think they're in a tier of their own. Then it's the tier of Chase, Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. However you want to flip-flop those ones, you can do that. So I think we're going to draft CeeDee Lamb with this pick, and then we will hop on over. I like this update. I feel like they did a good job with this. Okay, so after our pick, we go CeeDee Lamb. Running backs that do come off the board are the ones we mentioned, plus more. Bijan, JT, Henry, Saquon, Gibbs, Etienne, Kyron, Pacheco, all gone. That's what? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Top 10 running backs off the board. At wide receiver after us, we get Tyreek Hill goes. Then that trio that we knew would go, Chase, St. Brown, Jefferson. Then we've got that next trio, Wilson, A.J. Brown, Puka. And I believe it's almost very close to being drafted exactly how I would have drafted it. After that, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ayuk, Adams. Okay, so pull up the cheat sheet. We will hide the drafted players. This is what we're dealing with. Again, in a normal format, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, I don't want quarterback. I don't want tight end in the second round. If we're going to add value to wide receiver, then I definitely don't want quarterback, don't want tight end in the second round, and it would push them back even further as well. I have it round 4. So if you want to use that as a general tool and say, normally Nick says no quarterback or tight end in round 2 of a normal setup, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. Once you add in that third wide receiver gains enough value to where I would not draft a quarterback or a tight end until the beginning of the 4th round. Once you hit round 4, Laporta, Hurts, Allen, Kelsey, all completely viable just when you begin that 4th pick. This is, again, a 12-team league. In a 10-team league, it could potentially be even more because, again, you just have fewer picks, obviously, to make it to your 4th round pick. Okay, so given that, clear drop-off. The difference between Devon Achane, the top-ranked running back right now, I have projected at 200.8 points, and what is going to be our next running back, nearly 15-point difference. That's a pretty big gap. And while, maybe there's a gap at wide receiver, let's be honest with ourselves. Olave, London, Evans, Nico, Debo, Waddle. If you feel like throwing Kupp and Devonta Smith in that tier as well, the separation, let's see the actual difference in points. Okay, top ranked would be 190.5. Bottom of that grouping is going to be 187, 3 points. A 3-point difference for all those wide receivers. It's simply not worth taking one of them, even in a format like this, if we've got a player like Achane sitting there. If Achane was not sitting there, I probably wouldn't want to go with running back, just given we would have just missed out on running back, a huge run right now. For us to take the beginning of the next tier, that's not where the value is. The value would be, okay, I guess we'll just take 2 of these wide receivers. But I think it's great for us that Achane has fallen to this far. I don't care that these 2 teams have running back. Maybe they're slightly less likely to take them. I think you basically just have to lock up Devon Achane in that spot. So we take Achane. They go Jacobs, Olave, London, and Josh Allen. Again, we are not going to take a quarterback or a tight end with this pick. So, who do we have in the projections? Would have liked to have gotten London and Olave. They would have been... I misspoke a little bit. It's actually like 5 points for the total difference there because Olave. I was looking past Olave into London. But again, there was a very small difference in the wide receiver there. But yeah, they go. I would have loved them. Top wide receivers on the board. In order, Debo, Waddle, Nico, Kupp, Evans, Smith, Metcalf. That's how I have the rankings. But again, that is a 3-point difference between all those wide receivers. At that point, another thing I want to talk about, when you see the projections this close, if you've got a feeling in that moment that you think someone has a phenomenal season, you feel very confident in their workload. If you just feel strongly about one of these players, go for it. Like, go for that player. Again, the difference between Devonta Smith, Mike Evans. You're like, oh, Mike Evans is ranked first. It's 0.4 points. It is less. It is a negative 1 yard reception over the entire season. So when you look at whether it's my rankings or someone else's rankings, pay attention to the actual projection number and say, okay, it's very, very, very close. Do I have a take to where it might be different than what the projection is right there? So, do I have a different take? I don't know. I feel like maybe I just go with what my exact projections have, and I just go with Deebo Samuel. But again, if you wanted Deebo Samuel, I think the best takes here would be Deebo, Nico, if you thought he's clearly the X, clearly the number 1 receiver on Houston, you want to go there. Waddle, if you want that upside, especially stacking with Achane, maybe I don't want to put too much stock into that offense. Or it'd be Cooper Kupp if you thought Cooper Kupp was like the one this season. I feel like those are the ones I would deviate for. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to go with what my exact projections say. And again, Deebo Samuel, who is much better in half PPR than he is in full PPR. Okay, pull up the draft board. Again, the team. CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel at wide receiver, Devon Achane. I didn't really talk about Achane much on that pick. I was a little bit off him to start the offseason. When he was going in that mid to late second round on Underdog, which meant in redraft he was going at like the 1-2 turn, I was like, listen, he could pay it off, but there's a lot of phenomenal players to draft right now. I just couldn't see it. As he's worked his way back on Underdog a little bit, and in redraft now going where he was on Underdog, I like it a lot more. I've seen a lot more data points pointing to the fact that if we think about Gibbs, right? Gibbs and Achane had the exact same volume, virtually the exact same volume when Montgomery was healthy last season. And so you can't use offense as an excuse because both are going to have phenomenal offenses. You can't really use like competition as an excuse because who do you think is more likely to get injured? Dave Montgomery, who continually gets 200 touches every single season of his career, or Mostert, who's like 32 years old right now. Like Mostert's obviously more potentially injured there. More potential for touch upside. Well, I mean, who do you think could gain more touches this season? Gibbs, who, think they go up, but they love Dave Montgomery. They love using him at the goal line. They love using him between 20s. There kind of is only so much more that Gibbs can do in terms of touches while Montgomery's healthy. Pretty easy to see the path where they're like, let's just give a few more touches or maybe a little bit more goal line usage to Achane over Mostert, and all of a sudden he's insanely more valuable. So you start thinking about it that way, and you're like, okay, why is everyone convinced that Gibbs should be going at the 1-2 turn, but that Achane shouldn't be going at the 2-3 turn, right? So started thinking about that. A lot of data points on efficiency. So in terms of fantasy points over expectation, yards over expectation, all those things. No one thinks he's going to be as efficient as last season, but basically a 100% success rate of people being hyperly efficient, just getting more touches the following season. Because teams look at it and they're like, why would we not give Devon Achane more touches? Of course, we want to give him more touches. So enough things there for me to say, end of round 2, completely fine with that pick. Like the pick a lot in redraft. So that's just like a general take there on Achane. So again, Lamb, Achane, Debo. After we go, 3 tight ends, 3 quarterbacks, and then only 4 running backs, the rest wide receivers. Laporta, Kelsey, McBride at tight end, Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar, and then we already had Allen go at quarterback. And then again, running backs were Mixon, Cook, Rashad White, and Ken Walker, and then a decent amount of wide receivers. Pull up the cheat sheet. Okay. Top tight end is Andrews. I do feel like we kind of just missed out on the more locked in duo of Kelsey and Laporta to where, I still like Andrews, but I like Kincaid. I like Kittle. I like Kyle Pitts. I think I would rather just wait a little bit longer there, not take them in round 4. So no tight end. And then quarterback, had we gotten one of these top end ones, had Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar, Allen, had they been there, maybe we'd consider it. But 4-10, I'm not going to one of these quarterbacks. So no there. Running back, again, 3 wide receiver format. I want to be starting 4 wide receivers every week. We already have Achane. None of these running backs really stand out as far as there being a cliff there. So I think we're going to our top wide receiver. And maybe someone we talked about before. Again, Kupp and Devonta Smith theoretically should have been in consideration for us with Deebo Samuel. Like, they are phenomenal picks this season. Again, 1.1 point gap between Kupp and Deebo Samuel. So I'm getting 2 very good players there. Totally fine if you want to go Devonta Smith. I am going Cooper Kupp with this one. I do think Cooper Kupp should be valued over Devonta Smith. But again, I love them both. I would be pumped if somehow Devonta Smith also fell to us to our next pick with this second team here, not having even taken a wide receiver yet. I feel like it's somewhat unlikely, but cross our fingers. That would be an amazing, amazing start to this draft. So take Cooper Kupp, and there goes Devonta Smith. Unfortunately, it is Kamara, Devonta Smith, Aaron Jones, and Amari Cooper. Unfortunate, not the end of the world for us. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit to where I know people are available. Okay. Also interesting, Neighbors. I've seen in some redraft platforms, Neighbors goes at 3:10. Some redraft platforms have him way later. I think probably because we mixed in Fantasy Pros, maybe because we had consensus, he dries up a little bit. But there are some redraft platforms out there where Malik Neighbors goes in like the 5th round. And obviously that's a phenomenal pick, but it doesn't go there. Okay. Let's pull up the cheat sheet. I was wondering if he had gone. He has. Achane, Kyron. Okay. For me, top players are Tank Dell. Still haven't made that call yet if I want to move Diggs over Tank Dell in the rankings. I haven't done it yet. They're separated by 0.5 points. I think I'm going to end up doing it. We'll see. Maybe after this video, I'll put a little bit more thought into it. But yeah, I think I'm going to end up moving Diggs over Tank Dell there. Another reason why, remember when I can pull up our team right here. Remember when we went at this second decision at Deebo Samuel. A reason sometimes, again, I leave Nico is, well, I like Diggs. I like Tank Dell. I like getting those guys a little bit later, and I kind of don't want to draft both of them on the same team. And if everything's really close, I have this feeling in the back of my mind that like Nico could just go out there and have 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns, and we're sitting here like, oh yeah, a guy with like a 95th percentile success rate versus man and versus press coverage with an incredible deep ball quarterback playing the clear X role on a team that is going to feature the X position. Yeah, I mean, it made sense that he went off. Like, I feel like maybe we're just overlooking him a little bit more than we should. But again, I mean, I think, Deebo Samuel is also an incredible pick. So we have Lamb, we have Deebo Samuel, we have Cooper Kupp. I do still think our top option here is grab Tank Dell. It would be Tank Dell, then Flowers, then Higgins, then Keenan Allen, and then George Pickens. A little bit lower on George Pickens. I think we do it. I think we take the wide receiver. Because I don't need these running backs. I think we play the hero with Etienne. We just hope that he gets like 3 more touches per game than he had last season, that he is dominating, giving us running back 1 value, that we are able to just kind of find that running back 2 spot. Instead of taking running back in what is effectively the dead zone right now, let's take the wide receiver that we really like. You could consider definitely some of these quarterbacks. You can consider Mark Andrews here. I think I'm going to like cross my fingers and just hope I get one of Andrews, Kincaid, Kittle, or Pitts in the next round. But I think those are in consideration. I just think lock up Tank Dell. I just think he's a good enough pick here to where I want to do it. So let us draft Tank Dell, and let's see who comes off the board. Jordan Love, 505, a fellow Jordan Love fan taking him there. I love Jordan Love. You won't catch me taking him before Anthony Richardson. So we get Love, Richardson, Stroud, and Burrow just to pick ahead of us. Only Andrews and Kincaid, so we are still going to have an option at tight end there. Not many wide receivers. Flowers, Ridley, Higgins, Pickens, and Terry McLaurin. And then Stevenson, Connor, Pollard, Mostert, Montgomery, Spears, and Zamir White at running back. Decent amount of running backs in this range. Okay. Options. Kyler, Dak, and Daniels kind of round out that top 11 that I always talk about. I would very much like one of them. If I don't, we're waiting forever to draft. Tight end, remember I want a top 7. So we've got Kittle, we've got Kyle Pitts. If we look, we're at the short turn here. One team has Josh Allen, and then don't have a tight end. The other team doesn't have a tight end or a quarterback. So we could absolutely see tight end quarterback come off the board here. But odds are, like, let's say we took Kittle or Pitts, we're going to end up with one of those quarterbacks. It's just I probably wouldn't take Jaden Daniels here. So we still need to think about that. Do we have any sort of drop-off at wide receiver? Keenan Allen is who I have as the top player. It's Keenan Allen. It's Christian Kirk separated by 1.1 points. After them, there are options for us. We're likely going to see a run, but I see a pretty decent amount of wide receivers. So I love Godwin. I love Deontay. Rashee Rice, I don't think will be suspended this season, so he's a good value here. Marquise Brown, Christian Watson, all pretty darn good picks. Roma Dunze, and I know that some of them will probably be there at our next pick. So I don't think we go with wide receiver. Pulling up the team, we've got Lamb, Deebo, Kupp, and Tank Dell. I don't see a reason to draft our bench wide receiver here unless there was a huge drop-off, which, again, there is not. So no wide receiver. Running back, I do think that we've got a little bit of a tier here. So Najee's my top, 171.8 in the projection. DeAndre Swift, about 5 points lower behind him. Jalen Warren, around 10 points lower than Najee in half PPR scoring. And it is a drop-off after that. So I want to star all of them. Najee, Swift, Warren. I like long-term potential of Jonathan Brooks. I don't love him right now as my second running back with only Achane there. So that's basically the situation here. We have 8 players. We know we are going to get 2 of these players, so that's good. But we know that all these players will likely be on the next pick. Maybe not Jaden Daniels. And part of me thinks I want to risk that. I want to say, okay, let's lock up a running back and a tight end with this pick. Get that second running back, grab the tight end spot. Hope that Jane Daniels there at the next one. If he's not, we can wait a very long time. We can still grab, probably double dip at quarterback, take two of them a little bit later on. Not ideal. I would love one of Kyler or Dak Prescott, but I do think I'm putting Jane Daniels kind of into that tier. What do I have for the projection drop off for quarterback there into Jane Daniels? There's a drop. So like I had said, there's a top 10 that I really want this season that ends with Dak Prescott. There's a 15-point drop in the projection down to Jane Daniels, and he more is in that tier of Purdy, Caleb Williams, Tua, Justin Herbert, who's impacted now more by his foot injury. I think upside-wise, like thinking of ceiling-wise, if Jane Daniels hits, he'll be, a top 7 quarterback, and that's kind of why we want to throw him into that range. I think I want to still risk it, though. Let's look at tight end for a second. I do have Pitts over Kittle, and because that's not theoretically it's only one spot, but it's not theoretically what the rankings even have here. I think what I want to do is grab Najee, then go Pitts or Kittle, then do quarterback, knowing that I might miss out on quarterback. I think it's still worth doing. I just think if we get into this gross range running back where we're forced to start them, I don't think it's going to be amazing for us. So let's do that. Let's do that. All right. Pull up the rankings. Check out running back. Draft Najee. Pitts does go. That's unfortunate. So the computer heard me. 2 tight ends go, but it wasn't Kittle. Ingram and Pitts. No quarterback goes. Okay. And we're not going to do Jalen Warren and Najee unless Warren was there to like our next pick or something like that. All right, so that's the decision. Do we go with George Kittle, who I do think is being undervalued this season? I have him literally projected at the 704, so we're at the 703 right now. So this is exactly where I think he should be going. Quarterback-wise, if I did take Kyler, it'd be the 609, so I do have that projected slightly better of a pick. If we miss out on Kittle, I guess if we miss out on Kittle, we'll probably still end up with one of Ferguson and Njoku, who I do think is a tier kind of above this like Bowers, Goddard, Pat range. And maybe that's worth the risk to get Kyler. Do we have CeeDee Lamb though? Yeah. In which case I feel like I would rather just stack it with Dak Prescott. If CeeDee Lamb has a season where it's a pretty big difference, though. It was a 12.2 point difference in projection. If Lamb were to have the season that pays off his ADP at 3rd overall, you're thinking Dak Prescott is having some very, very high ceiling games. It does add some negative correlation, but that's a tough one. I feel like, and this is going to like define a big part of this team. So comment section, what would you do taking Kyler versus the tight end here? Yeah, I think it's too big of a gap, I think, to get the stack, where I think I would just rather draft Kyler. A 12-point difference is pretty strong in the projections. I think I should take Kyler. It pains me missing out on Kittle here, but I think it's the right move. All right, let's take him. Let's see what happens. He didn't go. Wow. Okay, so Dak goes at 805. We see even split of running back, wide receiver running backs: Moss, Warren, Javonte Williams, Brian Robinson, Brooks, Zeke, Chubb, and Devin Singletary. We see Christian Kirk, Godwin, Reed, Deontay, Watson, Adunze, Hopkins, JSN, Rashee Rice, all the ones I talked about being ones that we'd want, but no Kittle. So the easiest decision in the history of the world here. I don't even care that these teams have taken tight end. You could see a double dipping here. You would not risk it. You would just say, give me George Kittle. Thank you. I don't care if the system thinks we definitely could have gotten a different player at that spot. Okay. I did not think we could possibly get both of them. We have done so. Beautiful. Starting lineup right now. Kyler, Achane, Najee, Lamb, Debo, Kupp, Kittle and Tank Dell. No, I'm not too concerned having Debo and George Kittle. The amount of games where Debo and Kittle are both going to be terrible, 1-2 games, assuming, health for both players, which you have to assume when you kind of do these drafts. I wouldn't be concerned at all doing both of them. I would be concerned if it was like round 1, round 2, right? Maybe adding like if you did McCaffrey plus like Ayuk or Debo. Underdog, great. Redraft, a lot of risk, right? We did round 3 and round 8. No risk there. The amount of value we got on George Kittle all makes up for that. Okay, I like how this is going. Not looking at quarterback, not looking at tight end for the rest of the draft. So we're looking at wide receiver and at running back. Honestly, at this point, having 2 running back and 4 wide receivers, we're actually even because, again, we want to start those 4 wide receivers every week. So we're pretty even on both of those. We can go with Austin Eckler. We can go with Chase Brown. I can pull up the rankings, but I'm almost 100% sure we have Chase Brown over Austin Eckler. Chase Brown, 134.2 for the projection. Austin Eckler, 132.9. Chase Brown, top running back on the board. Chase Brown has a lot of upside. His offensive lineman, I think it was, came out and was like, if I was drafting, if I was allowed to play fantasy, I would draft Chase Brown with my first running back pick, or first pick even, I think he said. We're not trusting that in all anyway, but realistically, like everyone is assuming that Zach Moss is going to be starting running back, but every indication we got from camp is Chase Brown is a clear starting running back. So weird kind of situation there, but like if we could be getting the starting running back on the Bengals in the 9th round, kind of want to sign me up for that one, right? If we went with wide receiver, we'd be looking at Cortland Sutton, Xavier Worthy, Jamison Williams, Keon Coleman, Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Brian Thomas. Yeah, I guess Lockett kind of at the end of that. That's kind of what we'd be looking at. Cross our fingers, hoping we get one of them with their next pick. I think you take Chase Brown here. I just think that's too good of a value right now. And because, I wouldn't say Achane is like the safest of second-round picks we could have made. I think he's going to really work out for us, but obviously, not completely locked in. So, after we pick, Bowers goes. No quarterbacks go. We see Eckler go the pick after us. Gus, Corum, Trey Benson, Jerome Ford, McLaughlin, Zach Charbonnet, Gibson, Dobbins. We're getting into a gross range for running back. Wide receiver, Worthy, Sutton, Lockett, Palmer, Jamison Williams. Shakir goes, Keon Coleman goes, Brian Thomas the pick before us. Okay. Only player left that we had starred is Curtis Samuel. I wouldn't say I'm like supremely confident in Curtis Samuel, and like the more we keep getting this hype around Keon Coleman looking great out there and like making these like athletic plays, I still can't figure out exactly how his target share is going to go. Part of me is starting to be like, I don't think Keon Coleman can be an X. I don't think he can separate. Does it matter? Like maybe he just doesn't separate, but Josh Allen's good enough where he finds the opening. Josh Allen's good enough where like he's like, you know what? I trust you in jump ball situation. He kind of throws it there. Maybe he can work out in that way. I still love Curtis Samuel, and like again, I have Keon Coleman ranked ahead of Curtis Samuel. It's just he's not on the board right now. I think Curtis Samuel is just going to be a player that they scheme a lot of stuff to, and I think he's a talented player. Like they'll scheme him, especially I think red zone usage. I feel like if you kind of fill him in a couple times into like that flex spot, you're going to be pleased seeing like, oh, he's on the field at running back inside the 10-yard line, right? Potentially getting a carry, but potentially, being used to just get as a mismatch for linebackers. But they're going to move him around a lot, design a lot of plays, just get him the ball and see what he can do after the catch. I think he's pretty clearly the top pick here. I mean, it'd be between like him, Dobbs, Brandon Cooks, and Myers and Shaheed. Like that would kind of be the top end, but I still think Curtis Samuel is pretty clearly the top wide receiver. And it's a spot where we should be going at wide receiver. So I think he just makes a lot of sense there. Should be the short turn after us, right? Yeah, short turn goes by a defense, 49ers. Chuba, Myers, and Jerry Jeudy comes off the board. Kind of want to go Dobbs. I almost want to have a rule in my mind. I know it's not possible that I want like a Chiefs player and a Packers player on every single team. Again, not going to be possible. I don't think we can really get a Kansas City player unless we're like, what is his name? Like Wiley or something like that. Like their backup tight end this season. I want a piece of this offense. It's like Wicks is still here. We can probably get Wicks at the next pick, but there's been so like every single wide receiver on the Packers offense has had such good reports over the offseason. We have a decent amount of picks left. Okay. I don't really want to draft 2 of them. So it probably makes a little bit more sense for us to just like grab Shaheed and then maybe grab Wicks at like the next pick if we don't like the running backs. That probably makes more sense. But I'm starting to warm up to Dobbs as a pick because like apparently he's crushing in like one-on-ones. It's just like everyone's doing so well. I just think the offense can be so sick for the Packers this season. But it probably makes the most sense to just get the best value there. So you grab Shaheed. Oh, wow. I did not think that would happen. So after we go, Dobbs goes, but Wicks goes the pick after Dobbs. Didn't think that would happen. Also, Downs goes, unfortunately. You guys know I'm really into Downs right now. Dotson, Leggett, Mike Williams, Douglas all come off the board. We see some tight ends go, a defense. Still no quarterbacks. I do genuinely think like, and maybe I should start, maybe in next week's Mock Draft Monday, I'll click high for quarterback for saying like draft quarterbacks a lot of times just like earlier in the sense that like people are going to draft backups. In a hometown league, there's no way this range goes by and people don't start drafting like second quarterbacks. So I don't think that would end up happening because you could look at my decision to take, well, I don't know, Kyler's the end of the tier, but you could look at the decision to take Kyler and be like, oh, well, you could have gotten Bowers, Daniels at this point. And it's like, or Brock Purdy, not Bowers, Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels, you could get Goff at this range. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think in a redraft league would have gotten that. I still like the decision. No decision here, in my opinion. I mean, we're in a gross range running back, but like Brandon Cooks is pretty clearly the top wide receiver, so just take that. After we take him, Gabe Davis, Elijah Mitchell, Purdy, and Herbert come off the board. Okay, I want a running back here. I'll pull up the team. For running back, we have Achane, Najee, and Chase Brown. That's it. Wide receiver, we have Lamb, Debo, Kupp, Tank Dell, Curtis Samuel, and Shaheed. So with our 3 more bench spots, I do think I want 2 running backs and 1 wide receiver, and then we'll do flex. Who is the running backs that we want? Bucky, Estime, Braylon Allen, Vidal. Then it gets thin. I mean, maybe you think Jordan Mason wins the backup job instead of Elijah Mitchell, in which case you get some value there. I think Bucky Irving is probably my favorite here. Vidal is just, I think he has the upside, has the opportunity, but I don't think he's still even playing with the ones. Like they're still kind of going to roll with what they have right now. I think he's probably being hyped up a little bit too much. I think Bucky Irving is just going to like have a role. Not going to be running back 1. Even if we got an injury to Rachaad White, and Rachaad White is the starter, like they'll bring someone in, these are the backs. He'll gain a ton of value to be someone we're starting every week. But I don't think he'd be a 1. It's just like, I think he fits the scheme really well. I think he's going to be used in the receiving game. I think they'll like give him touches every week to where if I had to use him at running back 2, I could do that and not feel like it's the end of the world. So yeah, I think that one makes the most sense. Nice. Okay. After we go, looks like we'll still have some running backs on the board that we like. Decent running backs do go. It's just not ones that we wanted. Jamal Williams, Vidal, Tyron Tracy, who I do like later, but a little bit later. Roshan, Keaton Mitchell, Dameon Pierce. Really, Dameon Pierce is only out there as if he gets traded away. Quarterbacks go off, some tight ends go off the board, but I think we just go with Estime. I think he makes the most sense. Competing for early down role with Javonte Williams. If Javonte Williams is traded, Javonte Williams gets injured, Estime is probably a weekly running back 2. Even if that doesn't happen, he can earn that role. Great reports out of camp. Love that as a pick. You could honestly roll with Braylon Allen here. And again, this early, maybe the move would actually be take Braylon Allen, then take a wide receiver. If Breece Hall does not get injured before week 1, you end up saying, okay, that's totally fine. I can cut Braylon Allen. I can add my defense. You don't as much get that upside at wide receiver. Although I will say Polk is pretty clearly the top wide receiver. I mean, it's Polk. Polk. Polk is the only one, really. I mean, if you wanted to throw in Robinson, Wandale, and Ricky, but Polk is by a mile the best wide receiver on this board. No, I would take him. I don't think I could pass that up. I would take Polk. I'd say it's okay for Braylon Allen to get taken. He doesn't get taken. It doesn't matter. I mean, again, if we'll just take the defense so we can like make the team look neat at the end of it. But yeah, if you wanted to go with Braylon Allen here and say, oh, it's an injury to Breece Hall, I have that. I can just add a defense. Let me pull up the defense rankings. I always say like, oh, just take the top ranked defense. I have to find the defense rankings. All right, here. Oh, I have offensive line rankings on the site too as well. Oh, I'm an idiot. I don't even have a different page. So in years prior, the defense rankings were on a different page. I added them to the actual rankings page this season, so I don't have to actually find any page. But yeah, I have offensive line rankings on the site as well. I know a lot of people like looking at those, and they're broken into tiers of like elite, above average, below average, and trash. So who is the top defense? It would be nice if I had, let me actually not hide the drafted players just so I can see which ones went off the board. So Ravens, I'm just going to tell you the defense rankings in order right now. And again, these will probably change as I do more early season, like looking at the first 4 weeks, because I factor that in heavily into my defense rankings. I haven't really done that yet. I just went through and did like who I think the best defenses are. But yeah, I'll look at early week a little bit later. But Ravens, they're off the board. Cowboys off the board. Jets off the board. 49ers are gone. The Browns are gone. So very similar to what ECR has right now. Texans after that. And I also think Texans makes sense from a strategy standpoint of like, do you want your team passing against your running? You want your opposing team passing a lot, right? A run, all that can really happen is a fumble, right? When it's a pass, you get the drop back, you can get a sack, you can get a fumble, strip sack, fumble also leads to a higher chance of a defensive touchdown, get an interception for the touchdown. So many more things your defense can do. And if you're going up against a good offense, those things are more likely. So when it's a tiebreaker, you do actually want a defense that the offense on the other side like is actually good so that they're winning a lot of games and forcing other teams to throw, which leads to more potential plays, which is more potential sacks and more potential just everything for defense scoring. So Texans are the top ranked one on the board. After that, I'll list off like three more: Steelers, Bills, Colts. So those are the top ones there. All right. Oh, did they fix this though? I don't know what that means. They didn't. So you still cannot draft based off of clicking their name, which I think is dumb. Okay. There is the team there, and the theirs have it. Okay. That's the team. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know. I don't really know what my overlay is going to look like, but that I think is probably going to show you the whole team there. Kyler, Devon Achane, Najee, Lamb, Debo, Cup, Kittle, Flowers. I don't know why I said Flowers. Tank Dell instead at the defense. And then Houston Texans, bench, Chase Brown, Curtis Samuel, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, Bucky Irving, Estime, and Polk. I like this team. I don't think there's any weak points, which you always want to do at the end of your draft, basically, is look for like, okay, what do I actually have to improve? Quarterback, I think, is locked in. I think tight end's locked in. I think wide receivers, having Lamb, Debo, Cup, and Tank Dell, I think is a very strong core. It opens up some risk in that Cooper Kupp could get injured or not be as good as we thought before. But even if he's not as good as we thought before, like he's still starting on my team. Tank Dell, maybe he doesn't have the role we thought. So you look, okay, what is the bench? Shaheed might not be a high volume player. Brandon Cooks could just be old this season and not work out. Jalen Polk could take some time. So I do still think I like my backup wide receivers. Oh, and Curtis Samuel as well. I think there's enough like, oh, this could happen, that could happen. But overall, it's pretty darn likely that I'm going to have a decent amount of wide receivers that are good. But I would say like that 4-5 spot, maybe we try and solidify during the season. Running back, it is really just like a wait and see approach of like, is Devon Achane good, right? Is Najee Harris good in this offense? Like we kind of have to just wait. I mean, we know that he's good for Achane. It's just, Is he good in fantasy in terms of how many touches he's going to get? I think we'll know very quickly for both of those what the roles are going to be. But we have that firepower on the bench of Chase Brown, I think can be a high-end running back this season. Bucky Irving, I think, can have a role. I think Estime can have a role. So it's like, I think that can happen. But I would say the biggest things we would need to know early in the season are, is Devon Achane good enough to be that running back one for us? And do we need to kind of consolidate some of this bench into maybe a better flex if Kupp doesn't work out, if one of like Debo, Kupp get injured, if Tank Dell doesn't work out, that's where we'd be looking. But other than that, I think it's just a very, very strong build. So let me know what you think of the team in the comment section down below. We'll be back with videos for the rest of the week. I think tomorrow there's going to be a normal video. Don't quote me on it, but I think there will be. If not, that video will come out on Wednesday. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Watch this far, leave a like. New here, hit subscribe. But I'll catch you guys on the next one.